The Ninja Gaiden series is one of the few that transcends generations. Depending on the age of the gamer that you ask, you'll likely find they have a very different experience, but the difficulty and over-the-top ninja action seem to be what bind us all together. All this to say, there's a lot riding on the shoulders of Ninja Gaiden 4. It's been over 10 years since the last mainline release, so what better way to get fans hyped about the series than to introduce a new protagonist and bring in PlatinumGames as a co-developer? Yeah, I know, strange move, but as much as we all love Ryu Hayabusa, his story has been told, and a new warrior must take up the destruction of the Dark Dragon. As skeptical as I was about this action-forward Ninja Gaiden revival, I was just as eager to experience the thrill of this series once again.
じゃあ、そろそろ行きましょう。黒龍を復活させるなんて大犯罪。ワクワクするわね。そうだ。私はセオリ。よろしくね。
Ninja Gaiden 4 opens with the introduction of the new protagonist, Yakumo. He's currently on a mission to kill Saori, believing that doing so will defeat the Dark Dragon's soul. However, it's here that Yakumo learns that Saori holds the key to truly defeating the dragon, but first he'll have to take down a series of demons to revive it and then end the threat once and for all. And you know what, an action story doesn't really get much more straightforward than that, but in the moment, while playing, that's all the context that I really needed. Throughout the rest of the game, it feels like moments are missing. The narrative is almost non-existent, with story exposition confined to checkpoint conversations and post-boss next steps. The best way that I can describe this is that everyone seems to know more than what's being talked about, except for the player, and, maybe even Yakumo as an extension. But you're gonna need to focus a little if you want to piece all this together. Further, there's a third act chapter that tries to clean up some lingering plot threads, but it just doesn't do enough to make sense of everything and comes off as a quick fix. There is promised post-launch DLC with additional story content that could clean up the loose ends, but it's disappointing that fans will need to wait. And that's very likely my biggest criticism of Ninja Gaiden 4 because it's easily one of the best action games that I've played in years. Ninja Gaiden 4 understands action pacing on a level that most games don't by creating a unique combat system that takes a bit of adjustment. Still, when it clicks, the experience reaches insane levels of gaming consciousness. This is a game that'll lock you into a rhythm of style and strategy at triple speed before giving you a second to breathe, only to do it all over again. When it comes to this action system, I can only attribute the clever unlock pacing to its greatness. At the start of the game and on a base level, Yakumo has dual katanas, which can be upgraded using weapon experience gained through combat. Another currency called Ninja Coin is also collected and used for items and techniques, but we'll get into that later. Weapon experience for early weapons is set low, but later weapons require more experience to unlock. There's a nice balance in this design that forces you to pace yourself while unlocking new abilities for each weapon. In action, the flow feels natural. You'll unlock a few abilities, get comfortable incorporating them into your combos, and then unlock something new. Eventually, you'll gain access to a staff, lance, and dual claws, each with its own skill tree. I wasn't able to unlock every skill in my first playthrough, but I got attached to each new weapon that I acquired. Ninja Gaiden 4 gets you comfortable approaching combat with imagination. The system rewards aggressive play, but you can also take a slower, reactive approach. As I played, I became more confident switching weapons mid-combos to extend attacks and looking cool doing it. During fights, Yakumo can also use a Blood Raven form. This gauge fills over time and during combat, changing weapon properties and attack power to give players a new set of attack strings to unlock. Further, Blood Raven form is your lifeline for breaking enemy guards, so it's a necessary resource to manage during boss fights. Again, the flow feels natural. I wish it were easier to put into words just how fun this game is to play. Still, repetition tends to creep up in any action game, and Ninja Gaiden 4 is no different. Not all enemy designs land, and some of the late game waves that throw enemy types at you just felt off. Maybe I just really hate those dumb exploding lanterns though. God, I hate those. Anyway, there's also a moment like in previous games where you have to replay parts of previous stages and then refight past boss enemies, but it's during these moments that I wish they included alternate phases or new mechanics, but instead they're just the same fights all over again. This leads me to talk about the bosses. Like previous Ninja Gaiden titles, the bosses aren't always significant. Okay, hold on. I say this knowing that one of the bosses is a dimension-jumping shark with dreads, which sounds incredible, I know. However, having multiple chapters dedicated to it, knowing nothing about the enemy, only to kill it within moments of meeting it doesn't help sell its importance. There's very little hype around most of the fights outside of the 3 major ones near the end of the game. While I applaud the clever boss designs, I hope they do more with them next time. Stage design improves after each chapter. The opening stages don't encourage much exploration, but the later ones are almost maze-like, tempting players with challenging platforming and combat sections for rewards. It's here that you'll likely take on trials tied to missions. These rewards are usually equipables or strong items, but while exploring, you can also stumble upon purgatory trials where you wager health for an increased payout if you succeed. I would advise stepping into them even if you don't plan to complete them, because after beating the game you can just fast travel back to them. Some of the bigger upgrades are combat skills purchased with Ninja Coin. These abilities greatly improve the feel of combat, so talk to Terran to unlock them whenever possible. This is also where you unlock new equipment slots and additional blocks, so be sure to stay on top of that. Stages also include gimmicks like gliding or surfing that help break up the action. At their best, they combine these mechanics with platforming systems, but sometimes I just wanted the level to end. Regardless, I was locked in for the 16 hours that it took to clear the game, and I quickly jumped back in for more after completing it. Visually, Ninja Gaiden 4 is gorgeous in its design. The stages have minimal interactivity, but they create fun spaces where you can go completely wild with the combat system. Performance mode provided the best experience since some actions have tight execution windows, and I didn't notice any frame drops while playing on Xbox Series X. The camera takes some getting used to, but I found the auto-targeting system keeps combat pretty fluid. Flying enemies can be tricky to lock onto, but they're few enough not to matter. PlatinumGames' influences can definitely be felt, but it's focused on player skill rather than spectacle. The sound design also stands out, where it's crucial when responding to off-screen attacks, and boss battles often ramp up. The second phase 2 kicks in, with music intensifying along with the action. I mostly played the game in Japanese, but the English audio is fine too. I'll add that the soundtrack isn't particularly memorable outside of the boss moments, but it gets the job done and complements the chaos whenever it needs to. On normal difficulty, there's a good level of challenge. Series veterans or action game fans should probably jump straight into the higher difficulty though. The bosses could have benefited from an extra phase, but overall the balance feels right. Accessibility options like auto interact, HUD display changes, and combat modifiers help players who struggle to keep up with the pace. The game itself on normal is punishing when it needs to be, but not needlessly brutal, and the level of customization lets players tune the experience to their preference. As for characters, keeping the cast small was a smart move. Ayane's inclusion was a nice touch, but I think fans will feel burned by the lack of Ryu Hayabusa. Still, his presence in this whole adventure is prominent enough, especially in the later half, where I really enjoyed how they handled his characterization and role in the world. Just hearing his name makes characters tense up, and his presence brings a sense of excitement that's used sparingly. While the focus remains on Yakumo's mission, Ryu plays a pivotal part in his success. After finishing Ninja Gaiden 4, I kept thinking about how rare it is for a sequel to respect its roots while still trying something new. The story might stumble and a few fights feel half-baked, but when the action hits, it's everything I've ever loved about this series. Yakumo might not carry the same weight as Ryu Hayabusa yet, but he's earned his place, and I'm already looking forward to seeing where his story goes. The game provides you with action skills that you didn't know you had, and even after the credits, I can probably bet you'll want to keep perfecting your approach and chasing that perfect run. It's classic action reimagined for this era, and it reminded me how much I missed the simple fun of moving from point A to point B with nothing but skill and style. It's punk rock, challenging, and endlessly satisfying, the way Ninja Gaiden should be. NoiseyPixel is giving Ninja Gaiden 4 an 8.5 out of 10. Thanks for watching. This video is brought to you by our supporters on Patreon. NoiseyPixel is run by a group of gamers providing independent gaming coverage through news, reviews, previews, and more. Check out our Patreon to help support our continued growth, and subscribe to keep up with all our future content.
NoiseyPixel.